marks the beginning of tape number 2. The time is 10:25 and 50 seconds a.m. We're back on the record.
Doctor, I'd like to turn to a new area now. You said that you find no evidence of traumatic brain injury or closed head injury. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And on page 6 of your report, you did a mental status examination?
That's correct.
Can you tell the jury how long that actually took you, that actual mental status examination?
Approximately 2 hours.
I'm sorry, the actual mental status examination itself?
2 hours.
Okay. You have a paragraph here where you ask him about doing serial sevens, interpreting proverbs, spelling sugar backwards, how many stars are in the flag. How long did that segment take?
I'm not sure. Part of the mental status examination.
Okay. It's actually referred to as a mini mental status examination, isn't it?
No.
Okay. It took about 5 minutes?
No, the mental status examination begins at the time I'm observing Mr. Fairley. That means from the time I see him until the time the examination is over.
Okay, and I understand that your whole interview is part of your examination, but what I'm saying is the specific questions that you were asking him to then have a basis to testify that he has perfect memory, perfect concentration, no problems with comprehension, no problems with my exam questions, that I wrote down you saying in your direct. I want to know how long those series of questions were.
Well, they were questions that were conducted based on his history when I asked about auditory and visual hallucinations, so I'm not sure what I can tell you about which part fit into what and which part fit into that. But part of the mental status examination includes sensorium and mental graphs. Just as part of it includes history, part of it includes his social history, his functioning, his childhood history.
Doctor, if you would, please, could you refer to your report, page 7, the last paragraph. It starts off with the conclusion of this sensorium and mental grasp is contradictory to his statements of not being able to remember. And then you list a number of tests and questions that you administer to him. Do you see where I'm referring?
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to know that all those tests that you have in that paragraph, do you think it took you more or less than 5 minutes?
More.
More or less than 6 minutes?
I don't know.
Okay. And I don't want this question to sound not respectful, but most of these questions are questions that really an 8-year-old could answer correctly. True?
No, I don't know.
Well, an 8-year-old can answer how to spell sugar backwards, right?
I don't know.
An 8-year-old knows how many stars there are in the American flag. These questions don't rule out traumatic brain injury, do they?
No, they don't.
The serial sevens that he got right with you one time, how much significance do we put on that on one day he got that right with you?
You can add it as significant.
Well, all right. That's what I'm trying to understand. Why is that so significant that he gets it right with you?
Because traumatic brain injury does not wax and wane, and consistently with his continued improvement, it shows that he did not have a traumatic injury and does not have it at this time.
The fact that he got the serial sevens right shows that he doesn't have a traumatic brain injury? What about the quote that you said the obscure proverb? What's the significance of that?
The significance is that he's able to do more than recite something that an 8-year-old would know, but would have an ability as a mature mind to understand it, know the parts of which relate to dinosaurs and snails and rivers and streams, and have an ability to understand what that relevance may be to the functioning of an object such as a dinosaur. all of which are meant to be abstract. And the ability of abstract, the ability to abstract, is a rather significant, sophisticated ability to understand, concentrate, comprehend, and it's more than just a waxing and waving and to and fro of his cognitive abilities, but shows he has attained a rather sophisticated ability to have positive cognitive demonstration. So his performance there is consistent with my diagnosis that he has no traumatic brain injury, not just at that point, but over a long period of time.
Doctor, would you read back what that obscure proverb even was, please, in your report? What was the proverb you gave him that you're attaching such importance to?
Even dragons wading across streams with snails nipping at their heels.
And what was his interpretation that you found so sophisticated?
That even big people who appear to be secure and protected and you know, don't look as if they have problems, still have little things that may bother them, no matter how insulated and protected they appear.
Would you turn to page 8 of your report? The very first paragraph. That's where you address this proverb, correct?
Yes.
And this is where you say this is a sophisticated interpretation for someone who believed that his memory and concentration are disturbed.
Yes.
And you put his answer in quotes. Doctor? Doctor, did you put his answer to your proverb in quotes there?
Yes, I did.
So that was his answer to you?
And I'm not understanding your question. You made a statement. That was his answer to me. Yes.
Okay, that's why you put it in quotes.
Yes.
That's his exact answer.
Yes.
Doctor, going through your 6-minute mini mental status examination.
I didn't say it was 6 minutes.
I'm sorry. Going through your mini mental status examination.
I didn't say it was a mini mental status examination.
Going through the questions that you asked in that paragraph I've been asking you about. And maybe we can clarify. Do you know how many minutes it took you to actually go through those questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. Going through those questions, did he ever have a problem with any of your questions?
Not that I recall or record it.
Did he ever ask you to repeat any of them?
I don't recall that.
Did he ever say he didn't understand any of your questions?
I don't recall that.
If he did, could that be a sign of brain damage?
No. I've asked the question to be repeated here, and I'm sorry, it doesn't mean that it's a sign of traumatic brain injury.
Well, you're putting a lot of significance to the questions he's getting right. Would that suggest that you would put an equal amount of significance on those questions if he were to get them wrong?
Yes.
That would indicate brain damage.
It would indicate that he got the questions wrong, and I'd look for reasons why.
And doctor, you should never misrepresent in your report what actually has occurred. True?
I would not do that consciously, no.
That would not be honest or ethical to misrepresent what someone says to you.
I would not try to do that, no.
And doctor, you knew your examination was recorded. True?
Yes.
And you knew it was recorded, and in fact you demanded a copy of the videotape before you would even write your report. True?
I required it to complete my review of all pertinent records, yes.
And you did review that videotape before you finally issued your report about 2 months after your examination. True?
Objection to the form of the question.
Read it back.
And you did review that videotape before you finally issued your report about 2 months after your examination, true?
I did review the videotape prior to my completion of the report.
Doctor, I'd like to play a portion of that videotape for you.
Do you want me writing that?
Okay, Mr. Fairley, tell me please, do you remember my name?
Rosalind. I can't remember her last name.
Do you know where we are?
On Farmington Hills.
Can you subtract 7 from 100
93.
and keep counting down by 7?
86. 79. 72. 66.
Doctor, if you subtract 7 from 72, what number do you get?
85.
I'm sorry. If you subtract 7 from 72, like you were asking him.
65.
Okay. He answered 66. Let's continue.
59. 52.
Okay.
45.
Okay. And if I asked you what this meant, even dragons wading across shallow ponds have snails nipping at their heels. What does that mean to you?
Nothing really to me.
Just give it a thought.
Say it again, please.
Dragons wading across ponds, shallow ponds, have snails nipping at their heels.
No matter how big you are, and if you go across the ponds, snails will come after you.
No matter how big you are, if you go across the ponds, snails will come after you or something. That's very different from what you put in quotes as his answer to you, isn't it, Doctor?
Yes, it is.
What you put in quotes was, no matter how big you are, you can still have problems. Correct?
Yes.
Now, Doctor, these tests that you gave in that one paragraph that we've been going over, however many minutes that was, that actually, you gave your own battery of questions and tests in those 5 minutes or whatever it was. True?
Yes.
The point is that there are a number of standardized mini mental status examinations, the most famous being the Folstein, Folstein, that you could give that are almost identical but are standardized and have a score. Are you familiar with the Folstein
No, I'm
mental
not.
status examination?
No, I'm not.
If you don't give a standardized battery and if you don't have to score it, you don't have to say if someone is responding in a brain damaged range, if it's your own test. True?
Objection, form, and foundation.
Doctor, your test isn't standardized and doesn't have a score, does it?
That's correct.
And in your report, you make absolutely no reference to all the medical records you have from all the doctors that defense counsel did give to you, where they did specifically test for traumatic brain injury and they diagnosed traumatic brain injury. Is that true?
That's true. I did not make reference to them in my report, except to notice that I had reviewed them.
And all those doctors that diagnosed brain injury in his first week of the hospital at Foote and the second week in the hospital at Chelsea, you also did not put those in your report.
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that true, Doctor?
That's true.
Most, if not all, of these doctors have done far more extensive actual testing into traumatic brain injury than you did. True?
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that true, Doctor?
From not as a psychiatric point of view, no, they have not.
You also had in your records a brain MRI of Mr. Fairley, a positive abnormal brain MRI, and you don't mention that at all in your report?
I didn't find
Objection form and foundation.
I don't recall any MRI that stated specifically that it pointed toward a traumatic brain injury. And interestingly enough, it may surprise you that no matter how sophisticated imaging tests may be, they contribute nothing to a diagnostic formulation.
Would you read back my question, please?
You also had in your records a brain MRI from Mr. Fairley, a positive abnormal brain MRI, and you don't mention that at all in your report.
Again, I put it on the records.
Doctor, did you mention the brain MRI in your report anywhere?
No, I did not, inasmuch as it wasn't pertinent and pointed to any direction that my diagnostic formulation would support.
Doctor, when you say you find absolutely no evidence of traumatic brain injury or closed head injury, it's kind of like if someone comes to you with a positive mammogram or an abnormal mammogram and says, I've got these 10 doctors who are telling me that I have cancer, and it would be like you saying you have no cancer because you just do a 5 or 6 minute test.
Objection form foundation argumentative.
Is that a fair statement, Doctor?
No, it's not.
But most of these questions that you asked him, like spelling sugar backwards or how many stars are on the flag, even someone who is brain injured, even profoundly brain injured, can answer. True.
Not in my experience.
Okay. But in the testing you did give him, of however many minutes it was, he still managed to get 4 wrong. He got your last name wrong.
He didn't give my last name. He knew my first name, which is unusual. Most people don't remember that, or they mispronounce it.
He didn't remember your last name, though, correct?
He knew my first name, and he got it right. Who am I? He remembered Rosalind. He knew I was a doctor.
So you think that's a correct answer?
I think it's as good as he can get,
Even
having
though he
only
didn't
met me
remember
for
your
that
last
day.
name?
Absolutely.
Okay. He told you that it was the Mobil oil spill, not the BP oil spill.
That's correct.
He made a math mistake on his serial 7s.
Yes.
And he got your proverb wrong.
No, he did not.
He gave an answer that is markedly different than the answer you put in quotes as his exact answer in your report. Isn't that true, Doctor?
Yes. He did not get it wrong. Your tape shows that he did not get it wrong.
Let's hear it again, Doctor.
I was very frightened at that point.
Oh.
Can you tell? Dragons wading across shallow ponds have snails nipping at their heels. What does that mean to you?
Nothing really to me.
Just give it a thought.
Say it again, please.
Dragons wading across ponds, shallow ponds, have snails nipping at their heels.
No matter how big you are, and if you go across the ponds, snails will come after you or something.
Okay. You didn't get it wrong.
Snails will come after you or something?
Yeah.
That's your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Doctor, can we agree your report is inaccurate?
No.
Your report is accurate? Your report is accurate? Doctor,
Yes.
do you believe your report is accurate?
Yes.
You wrote that he got the serial 7s correct, he made a mistake, and you put down a completely different answer in quotation marks to the proverb that you asked him about. And I'm asking you, is your report accurate?
Yes.
You would never intentionally misrepresent what he said to you.
That's correct.
Let's turn to PTSD. What does PTSD stand for?
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
You're aware that he was first diagnosed with PTSD in June of 2008, approximately 2 months after this crash?
Yes.
Where in your report does it show that you asked him about all of the symptoms of PTSD?
It's not in my report.
Doctor, did you give any of the tests that are designed to determine the existence of PTSD?
No.
You did no testing for it. You just concluded he doesn't have it.
That's correct. He did not offer that he was in a near-death situation, that he had flashbacks and nightmares up, or changes in his personality or irritability, or numbing of his feelings. And so I can establish that post-traumatic stress disorder did not exist at the time I saw him.
But this is kind of like that mammogram example I just gave you. You're aware that he's been told and being diagnosed with it by a number of doctors for 2.5 years, and you did no specific testing for it.
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that an accurate statement?
I am saying that, like the mammogram, opinions may be offered, and many of the women on the jury will find some people will say you have it, and you get another opinion that says you don't, and you're not dying, and this was an abnormal test, and so they will generally be optimistic the fact that they don't have such a disease. And Mr. Fairley should be, I think, as well, optimistic that he doesn't have the labels that have been applied to him, that he does not have closed head injury.
But you're aware, if it's an issue in this case, if it's in the medical records and specialists for brain injury have been providing medical treatment to him for this, there are a number of very well-respected and established tests that you could have given if you chose to specifically rule in or rule out a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. You just chose not to do that.
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that true?
I have stated that those tests, even imaging tests, do not shed light on the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, and many clinicians will say that the diagnostic formulations required a lot more than the testing, that may be MRIs or may be formulated by psychologists, which are extensive and may pick up a number of things, but not conclusive for post-traumatic stress disorder or for traumatic brain injury. It is a clinical diagnostic formulation, diagnostic formulation, which I'm able to give and can do in the time I had, and the way that I presented in my report substantiates that there's no traumatic brain injury, no post-traumatic stress disorder.
Is your clinical diagnostic interpretation that you say you did, is that your own, that you just make up out of thin air, or is it based upon the American Psychiatric Association and the Diagnostic of Statistical Manual's definition of PTSD?
It is based on my clinical expertise and also fits into the DSM-4.
Because the definition of post-traumatic stress disorder in the DSM-4 says that an essential feature of PTSD is exposure to an extreme traumatic stressor involving direct personal experience of an event that involves actual or threatened death or serious injury, and the person's response to the event must involve fear, helplessness. Is that true?
It's true.
And you're saying that in your evaluation of Mr. Fairley, you had no indication at all of any of the indicia to meet the definition of PTSD as offered by the DSM-4?
That's true.
Doctor, I'd like you to hear what he told you in your examination.
What's the next thing you recall?
Woke up in the ambulance just as we were coming into the hospital.
Were you on a neck board or anything like that?
Yes. I was very frightened at that point.
Can you tell me what you were frightened about?
I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know what had happened. I couldn't figure out who these people were.
I'd like you to hear what else he said, Doctor.
Your hair was wedged between what and what?
Between the seat and the post there by the door.
The front seat?
The back seat.
Oh.
I based that on the fact that the cup holder had about 2 inches of blood in it.
You describe it really dramatically.
Doctor, doesn't that meet the DSM-4 definition of post-traumatic stress disorder, as I just read to you?
No.
So he tells you that he wakes up in an ambulance. He is waking up immobilized on a spinal immobilization board. Tells you he is very frightened. He tells you that he has no idea where he is or who these people are. He's in pain all over, and there are 2 inches of blood in the cup holder, and you say he is describing that very dramatically. And then if you would, Doctor, can you turn to page 7 of your report? Are you there?
Yes.
On page 7 of your report, under sensorium and mental grasp, did you write the following? And please tell me if I'm reading this to you exactly word for word as you wrote it in your report. Mr. Fairley stated that without the Ambien, he will awake screaming, recalling the accident. Did I read that correctly, Doctor?
That's correct.
So, Mr. Fairley has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder by his treating doctors since June of 2008. That's in the medical records that you have. You don't do any testing for it, and despite these things that he has told you, you say there's absolutely no evidence of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that true?
As you stated it leaves out the fact that there's no standardized test for post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't use one, but the clinical evaluation of whether he had post-traumatic stress disorder is evident that he has no post-traumatic stress disorder. At the time I saw him, and I don't know if other treating physicians reevaluated their diagnosis at that time, but certainly at the time I saw him, there was no existence of post-traumatic stress disorder, and whatever symptoms he had, certainly, which are sympathetic and certainly painful to him, they're being addressed in this current treatment, and I consider that to be appropriate and certainly responsive to the treatment and showing improvement.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is defined as exposure to an extreme traumatic stressor involving direct personal experience that directly involves actual or threatened death or serious injury. The person's response to the event must involve intense fear or helplessness. And despite all those things that we've just discussed, your conclusion is that there is no evidence whatsoever of PTSD.
That's absolutely correct.
And the doctors that do say he's had it and that have been treating him for it for the past 2.5 years, you conclude they are also wrong. You just chose not to give any of the tests yourself that are established by the American Psychiatric Association that could have helped to definitively rule in or rule out this diagnosis?
Objection, form, foundation, argumentative.
You've misrepresented my responses. I did not say those doctors were wrong.
You just disagree with him.
I'm telling you, at the time that I saw Mr. Fairley, there was no evidence of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm sorry, even in your playing back the tape, you can see how it's inconsistent with post-traumatic stress. How could he recall 2 inches of blood in a cup holder? I mean, that's his perception, but it doesn't agree with the facts. And as he even presented his history, he's certainly saying that what he recalls and what actually was the case is his recollection based on whoever told him that, or whatever he says, he woke up. That's not unusual to have some amnesia after an accident, be disoriented, but it doesn't govern the rest of his progress. It doesn't govern the rest of his treatment, and it shows even in his treatment that he's continually improving, and those records indicate that as well.
Well, he told you that he is, without his Ambien, he will wake screaming, recalling the accident. I guess what I want to know, doctor, is how much more would he have to tell you? What else would he have to tell you for you to be able to conclude that he may have post-traumatic stress disorder?
Well, you just stated it for me. He's on Ambien. There's no awakening with nightmares or screaming. I don't know what else to tell you. Who would not want to take the Ambien to wake up screaming? So I'm telling you, that's how he's being managed, and he's responding to the treatment, and there's no evidence of post-traumatic stress disorder.
See.
That would exist despite medication, and he's responding to the treatment, and that's appropriate.
So is it fair then to say, because I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this, that it is an issue in this case that many of his treating doctors believe he suffers from, and you chose not to test for it specifically, you just chose to conclude he does not have it?
That's not correct,
Objection,
as you
form,
stated it.
foundation.
Okay, how is that? Strike that. Let's move on, doctor. Doctor, on page 3 of your report, you say that he has absolutely no evidence of emotional injuries related to the April 4 crash. Is that still your testimony now?
Would you direct me to that area of my report that you're quoting from?
Bottom of page 2, last paragraph, Mr. Fairley has no emotional injuries related to the motor vehicle accident of April 4, 2008. The depression that he has is secondarily to a medical condition.
Yes, and I've stated what the Axis 1 diagnosis is.
Would you tell us what you would need to have heard or to know to be able to conclude that he does suffer from serious emotional injuries from this double truck crash from April 4, 2008?
Would I tell you what I needed to hear or what I did hear that told me that he did not have it?
Well, let's start with that then. What did he tell you that you did hear that allows you to conclude that there is no evidence of emotional injuries?
Well, I don't think that's fair of my conclusions. He does have chronic pain that's related to the motor vehicle accident, and from that there would be a depression. I did not say he doesn't have it related to his diagnosis.
He told you he is profoundly sad and depressed?
That's his perception. He's profoundly sad and depressed.
And you have no reason to believe that he's exaggerating or being less than honest with you?
That's correct.
In other words, that's his real suffering.
That's what he perceives, subjectively. Objectively, no, that's not the case.
Objectively, no, because you disagree.
Objectively, that he shows no evidence of that.
Doctor, can I have you listen to what he said to you about this in your examination?
Certainly.
I just have a profound sadness, and I feel overwhelmed at times. I don't know what to do. It's just none of the things I like to do I can do anymore, and I don't know, it just seems seems useless to be around sometimes. I don't know. I talked to my wife about it, and thank God she's here because she's wonderful. She's strong. And
she's patient with you.
Yeah.
Doesn't fuss at you and tell you to get off.
She's convinced me that would be a bigger burden if I did do something to myself than I would be now.
Talk about that, Mr. Fairley. Suicide. What would that accomplish for you?
Take the pain away.
You're not feeling like the pain is being managed?
You can only manage it so far. You don't want to get it heavy into the narcotics. I mean,
You don't want to be addicted?
No. I don't want them controlling me, but then again, I think the pain's controlling me, so I'm still working on that with the doctors. Let's see. I think the counseling has helped me some. We're going to continue with that. I was a little bit more, had thoughts that way when I was on the Paxil, and I've been off of that now, so it seems to...
Paxil made you feel more suicidal?
Yeah, the Wellbrutin seems to be a little better. I still have days where I could just stay in bed. But my wife, bless her heart, she
prompts you to get up.
She prompts me to get up, prompts me to get showers and stuff. Some days I don't feel like it, but she makes me.
You do shower yourself and bathe yourself.
My depression, what I can do to help it.
Have you been suicidal?
I have thought about it.
Have you ever acted on it?
No.
Did you have a plan or when you would do it?
I've thought about planning it, but never really. I've had people around me, they've been talking to me, so they've been adjusting my meds. I think it's helped me a little bit. There's still some days, and I just need to have somebody to talk to at those times, and fortunately I have them.
So you're in group therapy on Thursdays, and you see her 3 to 4 times this year?
It's about once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah.
And what made you start seeing Dr. Wilanowski?
Well, for about a year I had those thoughts, and
you didn't talk about them in group?
Not really. And it finally came out one time, and at the rehab, and they were concerned about me, so I arranged an appointment with her. And
do you own any weapons?
No, I don't.
Have you ever tried to hurt anyone else?
No.
Do you think you're depressed, sir?
I do.
Why did you just start seeing Dr. Wilanowski this year?
Well, like I said, I mentioned a suicidal thought, and they picked up on it somewhere, and I'd never mentioned it to anybody. They recommended I see someone. That's how she was the closest one to me. So.
How do you get along with her?
She's a wonderful lady.
She is a nice lady. What does she say or recommend to you?
We've just been trying to adjust the meds, and she just says continue to talk to people and talk to me. And
have you been tearful?
Oh yeah, I cry at the drop of a hat sometimes. A lot of times I just have to turn the news off because it's just it's depressing. It intensifies what I have already.
Whose father did this accident happen?
Frustrated and
just
sad.
I understand, sir. Frustrated and sad.
Okay, doctor. your testimony
What are you going to do the rest of the
in direct, in response to my questions now about what you wrote directly in your report, is there is no emotional injury related to the April 4, 2008 motor vehicle accident. Is that still your opinion today?
Well, I can concede that he has some depression now and that he states is intensified by the television. He stated that he was seeing Dr. Wilanowski as a result of his depression. And I would state that embodied in my diagnosis, it clearly states that chronic pain may cause the depression, which is a mood, and that it's related to his medical condition and the chronic pain. And I think I've stated that clearly.
I don't think so. So respectfully, doctor, you state 2 times in your report and in your direct and in the very beginning of my cross-examination that Mr. Fairley suffered, that you said there was no evidence of emotional injuries related to this April 4, 2008 crash. Is that still your opinion?
Objection, form, and foundation.
That is my opinion.
Doctor, let's go on. I want to turn to a new topic. You are, the medical records and the trial deposition testimony that you have received from defense counsel, at least as it regards the physical injuries in this case, would clearly indicate that these are catastrophic, serious injuries. Would you agree?
I leave that for the specialists in that area to determine physical catastrophic illnesses and their diagnosis.
Well, since you actually have what defense counsel has provided to you, and we've already taken their trial depositions, I did not make that statement inaccurately. Did I?
Objection, asked and answered. And form and foundation.
Can you answer?
I remain in the accuracy of my previous answer.
There are, in your medical examination that you did on behalf of the lawyers for Schreiber, there are questions that you did spend a lot of time on. You spent a lot of time, it looks like, asking about other potential causes or what else could be causing the emotional injuries and depression. You asked him about what his religion is, how often he goes to church, does he gamble, has he ever declared bankruptcy, has he ever had any extramarital affairs. You went through basically every single form of alcohol and every single form of drug, including crack. You asked him all these questions in your report. True?
Objection, form, and foundation.
Those are normal questions that are done in a mental status examination.
Can you tell me something, please? In a case of this kind of severity, where you're asking him about these things, like how often he goes to church, do you think that is more important than asking him about how the relationship with his wife has changed?
Objection, form, foundation.
I didn't weigh one response greater than the other. I did a general assessment of his ego strengths and the functioning of his coping skills.
Can you show me anywhere in your report where it reflects you asking him or him telling you about how the relationship with his wife has been affected by this crash?
Objection, form, and foundation.
It is not in my report as you stated.
Doctor, was that another mistake, or did you intentionally exclude that information from your report.
Objection, form foundation, argumentative.
Not as you stated that.
I'm sorry?
Not as you stated it.
Did you ask questions about his relationship with his wife and how it's affected her in your examination?
I think he put forth that about his wife trying to get him to go out and helping him cope with his condition.
You just thought that was not important enough to include in your report?
Objection, form foundation.
That's not what I said.
Do you think that it's more important as a psychiatrist who's doing a psychiatric evaluation to know how the relationship and intimacy between a man and wife who have been married for 25 years, how that has been impacted, than it is to talk about his general medical conditions like diabetes, which he doesn't have, triglycerides, hypertension, asthma, which he doesn't have, obesity, and vertebral degenerative arthritis?
Objection, form foundation.
I have no records of Mr. Fairley's functioning with his wife prior to the motor vehicle accident in April of 2008.
Do you have anything to indicate to you that he and his wife had a very successful and happy marriage?
I have no records prior to the April 2008.
What do you think that would be important in terms of evaluating the psychological and psychiatric impact, the emotional injuries he has suffered, to know how the relationship with his wife has changed?
Mr. Fairley didn't offer that I recall, and I don't have any records to suggest that there has been a change.
Mr. Fairley did not offer that, and you have no records to suggest there has been a change?
That's correct.
Doctor, I'd like you to listen to your examination with him.
Some days, though, I forget to eat. I'll eat a bowl of cereal and I'll just, before I know it, it'll be time to eat dinner and I hadn't eaten lunch or nothing. It's just forget.
How often do you have sex with your wife?
Since the accident, zilch.
Is there something that was damaged that you can't get an erection?
It's not that, it's just too painful.
You don't work around it, like different positions or anything like that?
Yeah. Other than maybe a little masturbation with her, other than that, no. And that's very seldom. It's just, we're just not intimate anymore. It's one of the things I really miss.
How old is your wife?
Oh,
Younger or older than you?
she's younger. She's 49.
She's a lot younger. She's a lot younger than you.
6 years.
6 years.
Doctor,
How has your life?
he told you that since this crash and his injuries, he's had no sex with his wife, that they're no longer intimate, and that's something that he really misses. Was that something that would be important to have in your report?
Well, it disproves your assumption that he changed his sexual...
Doctor, would you answer my question, please?
I am answering it, sir.
Please.
I have no information of how he functioned prior to the motor vehicle accident, and this is a very sensitive subject about his sexual performance. I think it's pretty clear when someone masturbates with their wife, that's sexually intimate. And whether he's performing sexually with penetration, I have no interest or understanding about his functioning prior to the motor vehicle accident. That may be by his choice, it may be by their availability. I wasn't performing any kind of sexual therapy or investigation into his intimate life. As it relates to this examination, it's pretty clear to me that intimacy is still available to him and he still feels pain. And I understand that they may limited his certain positions, but he offered that he has adjusted to it or compensates for it, and that they choose those activities that are mutually satisfying.
Did he tell you how frequently he and his wife would have intimacy before his injuries?
No, he didn't.
And he told you he's had no intimacy since, that they've had seldom masturbation, and that the intimacy with his wife is something he really misses.
Yes.
And isn't it true, doctor, that he did tell you during your 2-hour medical examination extensively about the things he loved to do and the things that were important to him and the relationship and quality with his wife? You just chose not to put any of those things in your report. So you could conclude that there is no emotional injuries that relate to this motor vehicle accident. Isn't that true?
No.
Objection, form and foundation.
I'll take an answer.
No.
Doctor, the basis for your prognosis, your optimistic prognosis, is that he has told you that he is improving. Isn't that what you said?
That's what I said.
He told you that he felt he was less depressed and he was making progress. Isn't that what you said? What you testified to that he said to you?
Would you show that in my report? What
On
you're
your
referring
report,
to?
that's what I wrote down you testifying to.
Well, I would rely on my report to answer that.
But in your report, you clearly do say on page 3, first paragraph, he noted that he has been improving. Did you write that?
Yes, I did write that.
And I read that exactly word for word as it appears in your report.
Yes.
Doctor, do you have your notes from the examination that you took with him?
Yes.
Would you look through your notes and please point to where he told you he is improving?
No, I don't know that I can point that out in my notes.
Do you want to try and find it for us?
I cannot.
Doctor, you are testifying under oath today, and your testimony is that he told you he is improving. True?
That's my understanding, yes.
Well, that's not your understanding. This isn't a mistake. You specifically testified under oath that he's told you he's improving. True?
My understanding of what he told me is in my report.
Or you say he told you he's improving.
That's my understanding.
Because if he did not say those things to you, if he never said he's improving, but the jury believed he did because of your sworn testimony, the consequences for Mr. Fairley could be catastrophic, couldn't they?
No.
Objection, form and foundation.
Well, the jury could unfairly turn him away or punish him based upon your testimony that he said to you he's improving, couldn't they?
No, they couldn't. The trier of fact would assess all of the conditions to determine his status. My role is to look at the psychiatric proportions.
And is your role to put things in your report and to testify about things that the person you are examining has never said?
No, that's not my role.
If that were what you were doing and you're testifying about it, you would be committing perjury.
Objection, form, foundation, argumentative.
I'll take an answer.
You didn't ask me a question.
Would you read it back, please?
If that were what you were doing and you're testifying about it, you would be committing perjury.
Isn't that true?
As you stated, yes.
And you'd also be committing fraud, and you'd also be violating your code of ethics with your own profession, the American Psychiatric Association.
Objection, form, and foundation.
Is that true, Doctor?
That's true.
Doctor, were you told by any of the lawyers or any agent of Schreiber Truck to put in your report or to testify that Mr. Fairley said he is improving?
No.
Doctor, I'd like you to listen to what he said to you in your examination.
So after you got out of Chelsea, you followed up with the physical therapy.
Yeah, they came to my house for like 6 weeks. And,
So you had home therapy then.
yeah.
When were you able to walk on your own?
I could walk when I got out of Chelsea. I just couldn't go very far. Still can't go real far.
How far can you go?
I'm probably up to, I'd say, 1.5 miles at the Y. And I used to walk 4 miles before the accident.
Do you think you'll ever go back to work?
Highly doubt it.
Why is that?
It's a pain factor. That I can't, unless it's a simple job, I don't think I can even get it through my head, keep things in order, whatever.
What do you mean, turn your head?
I don't think if I had a lot of duties, I don't think I could keep them straight.
Oh, you mean your head as far as...
I can't sit or stand for more than 15 minutes at a time without severe spasm coming in.
Where does the severe spasm?
My back.
Are you doing all that your doctors have advised you to do? Except the Y is something that Dr. Perlman says no sense coming back there, go the Y.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
So you are compliant.
Yeah. And basically that's just so I can continue to be mobile and get out of the chairs and stuff. It's not anything beyond that. Most chairs, though, I'm uncomfortable in. If I can recline, it's a little better.
Reclining's better.
But as far as a setup chair like these, it's just a certain amount of time and it just starts hurting really bad.
Hurts better if you lay back. You have a recliner at home?
Yeah. Some days I just had to go up and lay in the bed.
Do you do any reading or watching TV?
TV's about all I can do anymore.
What's a good day for you?
I don't know, I haven't had one lately.
Any constipation?
Sometimes with the meds.
Is there anything I haven't asked you feel is important for me to know?
I just have a profound sadness and I feel overwhelmed at times. Just I don't know what to do. It's just none of the things I like to do I can do anymore, and I don't know. It just seems useless to be around sometimes. I don't know.
Doctor, you testified and wrote in your report that he told you he's improving. I heard him say that he hasn't even had a good day. Can you explain?
Ejection form and foundation.
That is his perception. He hasn't had a good day, and I acknowledge that that's his perception.
Doctor, did he ever tell you in your examination of him that he is improving?
I need to see the entire videotape and audio tape, but my recollection is that he said he was improving, not at this time, but among some other areas of his functioning, yes.
That's not what you've testified to, doctor. You didn't... Let's do this, doctor.
I don't know if it's a question, but I have
I'll strike it. I'll strike it. Doctor, I'd like you to assume that the jury in this case does have notebooks, and if they write this down, and if Judge Wilson allows them to watch the full medical examination that you took of Mr. Fairley,
Yes.
you are testifying under oath that this jury will hear him tell you that he is improving? Doctor?
I'm sorry, what is your question?
Is it your testimony today that if the jury watches your examination of Mr. Fairley, that they will hear him tell you at any time that he is improving, that he feels he's getting better? Is that your testimony?
I'm not, I can say what the jury will hear, but I would say the trier of fact will get the impression that Mr. Fairley implied to me and told to me, and I understood from his statement of what he's had in the past and what he's undergoing now is an improvement. And in that regard, I captured that in my report, not a quote, but as he stated it, there are certain things he had in treatment that he no longer requires, and that to me is improving. That he told me that he's no longer using those things and electing to use others. And from that I deduced, as is my right as an expert witness, that he has shown improvement.
Doctor, you testified in your direct examination in response to the lawyer from Shiver's questioning, his direct questioning, that you said that Mr. Fairley told you he is improving. From your observation, he is improving, and that was a positive prognosis to you. And that you said consistently that he said he is improving, and you wrote in your report that he said he is improving. My question to you is simple. If we listen to your 2-hour videotape, are we ever going to hear Mr. Fairley say to you that he is improving?
You won't hear it in a quote, but you'll hear how he is no longer the way he was, even as he stated. He was able to walk when he left the hospital, not as much as 4 miles, but I don't know that he walked 4 miles before the accident, and that he is improvement. Yes, he did. I have no records to support that, and his perception is that he walked 4 miles. I don't know if 4 miles or not, but at the gym he's walking 1.5 miles. And further, he has indicated that he is not doing the things he used to do, that he was interested in, but the things he's able to do, he performs well, like the Ernie Harwell book that he's reading that he said he doesn't read.
Glad you brought that up. Are you saying that if we listen to the videotape, he's going to tell you that he's currently reading the Ernie Harwell report, or that that was a book he had read before this accident that he remembers reading?
I'm not sure.
Is he going to tell you, if we watch this report, that he has diabetes?
I'm not sure.
Is he going to tell you that he has asthma?
I'm not sure.
Is he going to tell you that he has hypertension from before this accident?
I'm not sure.
Is he going to tell you that he was obese before this accident?
I'm not sure.
Nowhere in your report do you write down that because he could walk better now than he did when he left Chelsea after his first 2 weeks in the hospital, that he is improving on his walking. If we read your report, we're going to get the impression, and listen to your testimony today, we get the impression that he's telling you, at least at the time of your exam, doctor, that he feels he's improving. True?
My report reflects that he is improving.
Doctor, nowhere in your report did you write that he contradicts himself that he told you in one place that he's not improving, that he, quote, hasn't had a good day lately, but you told us that he told you he's improving. Is that a contradiction?
That's my understanding, that he hasn't had a good day lately, but he has had good days.
That's very different from what you've testified to now, isn't it?
That is
Objection,
what I'm
form of
saying.
foundation.
Okay. Doctor, I just want to be absolutely crystal clear on this. Is it your testimony under oath that Mr. Fairley ever told you that he is improving? Yes or no?
Objection, asked and answered.
I rely upon my statements already made.
Nothing else?
Doctor, is there anything after the cross-examination here that would cause you to change the opinions and conclusions that you rendered under direct examination?
No.
Thanks, Doctor. Nothing else. Oh, before we close the record, I wanted to read in those, I didn't put in the specific documents, the list of 12 things. So, these were the items. 1, narrative report of Dr. Wilanowski dated April 16, 2010. 2, medical records of Dr. Wilanowski. 3, report of Dr. Yvonne Silva, MD. 4, report of Dr. Louis BOGRAB, MD, dated April 14, 2010. Report of Stephen Schechter, MD, dated August 6, 2009. Neuropsychological assessment of Philip Lethan, PhD, dated May 13, 2009. Deposition transcript of Harish Rawal, MD, dated April 5, 2010. Neuropsychological evaluation of Bradley Sewick, PhD, dated November 21, 2009. Medical records of Associates in Physical Medicine, Dr. Perlman. Initial neuropsychological evaluation by Dr. Terry Brashevsky. And medical records of Ann Arbor Rehabilitation Centers, Inc., and the records of Robert B. Ansell, PhD. Those are the 12 items. I didn't go through it on the direct. That's all I wanted to complete.
Nothing else?
This concludes today's deposition. The time is 11:33 and 41 seconds a.m. We're now off the record.